Welcome everyone to the 57th convening of our small society. And today, Michael, who runs Soteria, will be speaking about the writings on love by an author that is I think one of the closest to his heart, namely Shakespeare. That's true, isn't it, Michael?
Yes.
Yeah, and Michael is a good person to speak about Shakespeare because he's very familiar with his works and has got quite definite views about who Shakespeare was, which probably forms some of his opinions about the meaning of the words that he wrote. Without further ado, Michael, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Ted. I won't be talking actually too much because the material is so extensive and it is anyway, or it has become the tradition of our society a little bit to do reading more than somebody just talking on a subject, which I think is successful. And when it comes to Shakespeare's plays, maybe the most interesting thing is to return to some of those plays and to read from them and to refresh our memories about them rather than to have somebody giving another lecture about them. So my introduction will be quite short, also because I've got a lot of excerpts and maybe too many, so we might have to leave one or two out. We'll see how it goes.
Mm, mm, mm,
It's Shakespeare on Love, Love is Strange, and I have over the years had a little bit the feeling that maybe the subject is a little neglected, although I am in no way an expert on Shakespeare criticism. Shakespeare's approach to love as a phenomenon and how people fall in love and in what ways they fall in love and how love is very different in Shakespeare. And in my opinion, there are three kinds of love essentially, or that become very prominent both in the sonnets and in the plays. Um, One is a sort of young love, idealistic, almost a crush, a passion, in which the person is in love with the fact that the person's in love and the person beloved is almost unreal or is in some way idealized, if you like, a young kind of love. There's another kind of love, which is the marriage of true minds, to quote from the sonnets, in which two characters find an empathy and coordination and relationship between themselves, which is a kind of verbal play and a love that grows out of that interaction.
mm,
And yes, in both those relationships, the one thing that is missing is the erotic, is the sex. And I, perhaps slightly controversially, have the impression from Shakespeare that there's a certain distancing, even distrust and dislike of everything erotic and sexual. That might be a controversial view, but some of the readings a little bit, I think, may support that very
mm,
strongly in Hamlet, where, again, I'm sure people have written about this. I've just never seen it written. Hamlet seems to be a fanatical Puritan and somebody who absolutely abhors sexuality. Seems to me something that very strongly that impressed me in Hamlet. And in modern terms, one would practically say he's got a psychosis or trauma about it. It's so extreme. Anyway, that is my background. We can look at the various texts to read. I hope it's fun. And really, if you like, this is just an excuse for reading some Shakespeare texts again, which is fun. And I hope you enjoy it. So yeah, let's have a look at the first very famous, probably familiar to most of you or all of you, from the beginning of Twelfth Night. And we've got two people, I think, here. Orsino, who's the lovesick Duke. This is the beginning of Twelfth Night and requires no introduction because it is the beginning of the play. And
Would you
so
please
this
read that
speech
later?
is, yeah, perhaps a little bit larger, maybe. Could be.
sure.
Yeah,
Larger or
that's good.
Janine, is that okay for you?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay.
So maybe Michael, would you like to read Orsino and Janine. There's a short part with Curio. I think
Okay.
those are just the two
Mm.
roles here, I think.
Okay, if music be the food of love, play on. Give me excess of it, of that. Surfeiting, the appetite may sicken and so die. That strain again, it had a dying fall. Oh, it came o'er my ears like the sweet sound that breathes upon the bank of violets, stealing and giving odor. Enough, no more. 'Tis now not so sweet now as it was before. O Spirit of love, how quick and fresh art thou, that, notwithstanding thy capacity, receiveth as the sea, naught enters there. Of what validity and pitch soe'er, but falls into abatement and low price, even in a minute. So full of shapes is fancy, that it alone is high fantastical.
Will you go hunt, my lord?
What, Curio?
The heart.
Why, so I do, the noblest that I have. Oh, when mine eyes did see Olivia first, methought she purged the air of pestilence. That instant was I turned into a hart, and my desires, like fell and cruel hounds, e'er since pursue
Mm.
me.
Pursue me. Yeah.
Uh, we
Oh,
have.
how now, what news from her?
Oh, maybe Stead. Could you be Valentine's? I forgot.
So please, my lord, I might not be admitted, but from her handmaid do return this answer. The element itself, till 7 years' heat, shall not behold her face at ample view, but like a cloistress, she will veiled walk, and water once a day her chamber round with eye-offending brine. All this to season a brother's dead love, which she would keep fresh and lasting in her sad remembrance.
Oh, she that hath a heart of that fine frame to pay this debt of love but to a brother. How will she love when the rich golden shaft hath killed the flock of all affections else that live in her? When liver, brain, and heart, these sovereign thrones, are all supplied and filled, her sweet perfections with one self king. Away before me, to sweet beds of flowers, love thoughts lie rich when canopied with bowers.
Okay, so yeah, that's the
Mm,
first reading. You're probably most of you or all of you, I don't know, are
mm.
familiar with that.
And what are your thoughts about that, Michael, in relation to your introductory comments about the types of love?
With it very definitely the first type of love,
Mm,
and Shakespeare plays upon this more than once. It's the same with Romeo, who's in love with a Rosalind who we never see in Romeo and Juliet,
mm,
until he meets a girl who talks back to him, or actually talks. There are so many themes here. There's so much typically of
mm,
Shakespeare, the wordplay, of course, even the sweet bank of violets, because he's going to fall in love
mm,
with a viola, really in
mm,
love. Orsino, the little bear who's tortured by love. And also this notion of love associated with pestilence and disease, either
mm,
that you
mm,
catch love like the pestilence, or that the love can expel pestilence. Um, to me, that Shakespeare's parodying himself, because I think in the sonnets he's sometimes like this, and I think he makes fun of himself. It's just my belief. But I think
mm,
it's a superb in itself, and at the same time, one has to admire it. I mean, if you've been in love, you do feel like that. So it's sort of saying, I'm like the same as you. There's something very cheering about it, and the association, of
mm,
course, with music.
mm, mm,
It's just, to me, it's a lovely piece of poetry in itself, but at the same time, not entirely healthy. Also, there's a sort of slight sexual undertone there as well,
mm,
which doesn't sound so healthy, so good. Uh, it's such a rich text. One could talk just
mm.
on that text for about half an hour.
Do you think that the focus on love um, is a way of focusing on more general feeling of happiness and contentment and hope at the fact that one is alive?
Yes, And
So
the love theme in Shakespeare, true love, which is mostly concentrated, not exclusively, but mostly in the comedies, which is the female element where everything comes together, and the tragedies, which is the male element where everything is conflict and horror. Shakespeare's attitude to women is so paradoxical and controversial, but there is an element where a woman is the savior, and certainly in the comedies, and certainly in Twelfth Night and As You Like It, I think. Who cannot actually fall in love with Viola and Rosalind? I mean, they're such wonderful characters. I sort of, in a sense, have been in love with them all my life. You know? I mean, I know they're fictional characters, but they're just so wonderful, and they bring everything together, and they are so witty, and they're so charming, and yeah.
Well, this poem reminds me almost, I'm familiar with the first part, not the second part, but it almost seems to me as though he's saying that love is almost like an amulet against life and the disease, which leads to death. It's almost like the female is, like you just got through saying, almost like the rescuer of the male from the reality. And wasn't weren't the nosegays and stuff because of the pestilence?
Interesting point, yeah.
Inclusion of the word pestilence almost makes me think of Ring Around the Rosie, that kind of way of warding off, the unease and pleasantness of diseases of life. That's what struck me the most, was that line. And then he talks about liver, brain, and heart, those organs which are sensitive to assault from old age and disease.
I was crudely trying to express a thought, which perhaps I'll express more clearly. If one isn't actually in love with anyone in particular, is this not still a sentiment that one can feel? Almost, it's more general. It's almost like something rather rather like a love of the divine in life. It's or am I extracting more from it than it's because I'm not in love with anyone at the moment, but I nonetheless, this is something that echoes in my experience. Does that make sense, Michael?
I
No,
don't know if
no.
yeah, it makes perfect sense, except that I don't especially associate it with Shakespeare, but
no.
it's certainly a feeling anybody could have, and it's certainly not an unusual feeling, and it can certainly, one can have that from the experience of following these plays, for sure. But I wouldn't have thought it's something that's very strongly in Shakespeare, because it seems to me that love is always related to a person.
To a person,
I mean,
it might be a rather radical idea, the idea of love as this kind of unattached entity that hovers around and blesses people at will. Yeah. So I think it's good to have a talk about each passage.
Absolutely, yeah.
There is so much here, and I think like a feast, we shouldn't attempt to gorge ourselves on everything.
No,
just
absolutely.
take it.
Completely agree. Completely agree.
Because these are all beautiful pieces. All right. So anyone else have something to say? Otherwise, we can perhaps move on to the next extra.
Well, of course, as the title of our session runs, that love is strange. Love is strange, but it's also very real. When it is conveyed through poetry, albeit by maybe the greatest poet of English language, it sounds sometimes, I don't want to be overcritical, a bit too flowery. I mean, I've been in love several times. I love falling in love. I actually fall in love quite regularly by looking at someone in the street. But I mean, it is. It would never cross my mind to engage in this sort of flowery language. It's just a sensation, a feeling, a desire, and sometimes a desire which is actually not all that, how shall I say, there's love as domination.
Yeah.
I mean, here it seems to be mutual, but of course, very often love is not requited. And in Hamlet, Hamlet speaks of it almost of unrequited love.
Yes.
So Hamlet must have known, or Shakespeare must have known, but it is in a way part of the grip of it. And love is a grip which holds you. But I mean, I was always interested in the theatre, and I think I mentioned this last time we were. I wonder what the audiences, Elizabethan audiences, they were confronted with this very rich, flowery language. What they felt, if they heard it or understood it at all.
Yeah, I would respond to that before Frank saying that I would suspect Shakespeare might agree with you. I mean, I think that's the point, that the flowery language is of people in love. And I think you will see the contrast in exactly the next excerpt, where a love is growing, where there isn't that same fruitiness of language, that same poetical perhaps, but the same extravagant language. And you're quite right, the unrequited love is expressed in that way. And you might even see in Shakespeare the unrequited love expressed in this extravagant way, and the requited love perhaps not, more in wit. As far as the language is concerned, please bear in mind that all those writers are actually quite extravagant in their language, not just Shakespeare. I mean, Ben Jonson, personally, I find
naturally, yes,
more difficult to read than Shakespeare, and his vocabulary is, I would say, nearly as extravagant and maybe even more strange in some respects. So if Elizabethan audiences were puzzled by Shakespeare, they must have been puzzled by most of the writers of the time, because they all seem to go in for puns and double entendres and extravagant, strange vocabulary and classical references. I mean, most of them, not all of them, but most of them, I think.
Right, let's move on. Should we keep
I think people who have the same roles should probably perhaps
okay then.
keep them. Although perhaps Janine, perhaps you'd like to read Viola here, who's the background here is that Viola is disguised as Cesario, as a young boy. This is itself an extremely ambiguous element in Shakespeare that has been much discussed. On the Elizabethan stage, no women were permitted, so this would be played by a boy who is supposed to be a girl, who is then disguised as a boy on the stage. And the Duke doesn't realize it, but the Duke becomes excessively fond of this boy. There's also the vexed subject of Shakespeare's possible or not possible homosexuality. And I remember having a discussion with someone many years ago, and the person said, oh no, well, Michael, you can see that Shakespeare's absolutely not homosexual, because immediately these disguised boys turn into women, then immediately the person wants to marry them. So in a sense, what Shakespeare's saying is, I can understand the desire, but the sexuality of the same sex would be shocking. And I think actually that is probably right. I've thought about this over many years. That was said to me 50 years ago. And I think the person who said that is actually right. One can have different opinions about that, but in any case, the Duke here is using Cesario as his embassy to the Countess with whom he is in love, or who thinks he is in love. And the Duke is becoming increasingly fond of this page boy, who is in fact a woman in disguise. And perhaps Father Frank, would you like to read Valentine, and Janine Viola, and then Michael, if you keep the same role? Yeah.
If the Duke continues these favors towards you, Cesario, you're like to be much advanced. He has known you but 3 days, and already you're no stranger.
You either fear his humor or my negligence, that you call in question the continuance of his love. Is he inconsistent, sir, in his favors?
No, believe me.
I thank you. Here comes the Count.
Who's all Cesario?
That's you, Viola. It's this, yeah, you're
Yeah.
disguised, you see.
On your attendance, my lord, here.
Cesario, thou knowest no less but all. I have unclasped to thee the book even of my secret soul. Therefore, good youth, address thy gate unto her. Be not denied access, stand at her doors, and tell them there thy fixed foot shall grow till thou have audience.
Sure, my noble lord. If she be so abandoned to her sorrow, as it is spoke, she never will admit me.
Be clamorous and leap all civil bounds rather than make unprofited return.
Say I do speak with her, my lord, what then?
Oh, then unfold the passion of my love. Surprise her with discourse of my dear faith. It shall become thee well to act my woes. She will attend it better in thy youth than in a nuncio's of more grave aspect.
I think not so, my lord.
Dear lad, believe it, for they shall yet belie thy happy years that say thou art a man. Diana's lip is not more smooth than Rubius. Thy small pipe is as the maiden's organ, shrill and sound, and all assemblative a woman's part. I know thy constellation is right apt for this affair. Some 4 or 5 attend him, all, if you will, for I myself am best when least in company. Prosper well in this, and thou shalt live as freely as thy lord to call his fortunes thine.
I'll do my best to woo your lady, yet a barful strife. Where'er I woo, myself would be his wife.
Okay, so yeah, I could have perhaps chosen other scenes, but that one already shows the how should I say? I mean, the tension growing up between true love, and of course the play is resolved when all the people find their right counterpart. It has a great charm to it, I think. So there's perhaps not so much to say about it as the main speech, but yeah.
I mean, you were saying a question about homosexuality, Michael. I think there is a homoerotic strain here. And of course, because women could not play in,
Yeah.
and female roles were played by lads, something must have gone on. So, and
Yes.
in a way, I mean, it's nothing to do with Shakespeare was homosexual. It's a question of encompassing the variety of human love. I mean, whether we like it or not, it is an expression of human love. You know, whatever moral judgment,
Yes.
it is a kind of love.
You know,
Oh yes, I think that the love. I mean, this is the point. But I think it's a love that, in Shakespeare's view, excludes the physical in this particular case.
well, you know, Michael, because you announced the topic of this meeting, I just happened to get a copy and watched it. Julius Caesar,
Mhm.
the movie. James Mason and Laura Lilly, a lot of people in it. Gerard, you know, all these. And I counted how many times the exchange of the word love was done between the men. The women, their wives, even though they express care about them, because Caesar, you know, says his wife, "Okay, I won't go if you really don't want me to." But then the guy comes in and says, "Well, they're expecting you at the forum. You have to." And he says, "Well, okay, dear, but I'm going." And she said, "Well, you know, what you just said you weren't, now you are." And I noticed that the relationships with their wives, there is never a romantic or it's almost unemotional attachment, as opposed to the number of times Caesar and Brutus and the other men say, "I love thee well." Do I not express my love for you? In when they're talking about honor and loyalty and those male virtues, especially with the military. And I'm wondering, was that actually a normal thing for Caesar to do? I mean, Shakespeare to do when he was writing plays like Julius Caesar?
Yes, I would
That's a
say
good point.
yes, but I would put a qualifier that I think it's probably necessary to differentiate among the plays. There are a number of plays where it's almost as though there's a time switch or a switch within himself, within Shakespeare himself, where women do emerge, although it has to be said, taking usually rather masculine roles as the equal of men. Think of Portia in Merchant of Venice, um, and Beatrice in Much Ado About Nothing, where it seems that women are able and potentially in the future, almost say, might be reading too much into it, to assume and be the equals of men. But the traditional role is so strongly there that in that kind of role where women have a subordinate role, a lot of love will be expressed between men because women are in the subordinate position. That's absolutely right. So yes, I do agree. But I think in these comedies, particularly where Viol and Rosalind come as the kind of spirit of love, they are intellectually very capable. Um, so I think there's a sort of ambiguity maybe in Shakespeare himself about that.
I don't know if this is relevant, but in Othello, which is actually one of my favorite plays, and maybe the favorite, when Iago says to Othello, when Othello says, "Iago, do you love me?" And Iago replies, "My lord, you know I love you." Obviously, the word love is used not in an erotic sense, used in a sense of French, where it's quite clear. But I mean, coming back to a question of homosexuality, I mean, in John Aubrey's famous, wonderful book, Brief Lives, where thumbnail sketches of all sorts of characters in Elizabethan and Jacobean times, he described Francis Bacon, the Chancellor of England and great philosopher. Aubrey says that he was a paiderastus, he uses the Greek, and he had favors and Ganymedes. Ganymedes, well, we know who Ganymede was in Greek mythology. And King James himself, I mean, he was married, he had children, but he had favorites whom highly thought to have been his catamites. So, you know, whether we like it or not, it was there. Whether it was Shakespeare, I can't say.
Yes. Just my feeling is, as I say, I would stress, perhaps we see it from the viewing, that Shakespeare was ambivalent in that, but saw the love between the same sexes or any kind of love. I would put it like this. I see an enormous tolerance in Shakespeare, but an absolute wall comes down and an extreme traditionalism, even for the time, in terms of any kind of sexual relationship. And even sexual relationship outside marriage. I mean, the whole way that the women, again and again in Shakespeare, and I would say probably 5 or 6 of the plays, I can't remember, something like that. One of the focuses of the plays is a woman who's been maligned, it's calumny, and that is the worst crime for Shakespeare almost, because how could you say anything so shocking that a married woman could have a sexual relationship? And therefore, Iago, or in Much Ado About Nothing, I forget the character's name, who creates this situation in which the woman is unjustly accused. It's the same in Winter's Tale. That is the worst possible thing. And yet Shakespeare therefore assumes that you agree, and he certainly assumes, were it true, therefore it would be the worst possible thing for a woman to do. And in fact, I've got a passage lower here where Shakespeare's attitude to the idea that a woman could deceive her husband, probably much more than the reverse, is just unthinkable and despicable. And therefore the accusation, when it's false or intentionally false, is about the most evil thing you could do for Shakespeare, it seems, as Iago is the embodiment of evil, to create this idea in the mind. So it seems to me to be a rejection of or a deep suspicion of sexuality in Shakespeare.
Yeah, I agree. I think the obsession with the denunciation of cuckoldry and allied activities is something that I really yeah, I find quite tedious and just have no interest in it. I just really could care less.
Well, of
Right,
course,
shall we?
there was what was it? Divorce of Italian way when was crime passionnel, crime of honor. So if a husband discovered his wife was having an affair with somebody else, he could kill her and to some extent get away with it because it was an extenuating kind of circumstance.
Mm.
Sorry, I'm going for the tangent, but do you remember
Yeah.
Harold Macmillan, Prime Minister of his country many years ago? Harold Macmillan's wife had a long affair with somebody else, a peer who was a friend or he grew of some criminal. But anyway, living the other side, I mean, he knew it, and he came back in the evening at home, and his wife was not there because she was with the other man. Now, as an Italian, I feel he should have killed her.
Well said,
Sorry,
Father
guys.
Frank.
Sorry, guys. I can't help being an Italian.
Yeah, no, yeah, interesting.
Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
an Italian.
I begin to see why you think Othello is your favorite play. Yeah.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
jealousy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I understand jealousy a lot.
Yeah. I mean, that's almost just as important a theme in his writings as love in the positive sense, isn't it? This possessiveness of other people and those kind of things. If that's Paul in Australia who's joined us, good to good
Oh,
to
wow.
sort of
It's
good to
3
see
in the
you.
morning?
Yeah,
I don't see that.
congratulations. Yeah, hope you're keeping your eyelids propped up with matchsticks or whatever. Right now, should we press on? Let's press on. Let's strange. Right. Why is it taking something? Come on. One thing. Sorry, it seems to be taking a while. I don't know.
You have to refresh.
Oh,
it.
hang on. Pause. It's
Yeah, perhaps you put it on.
oh, hang on. Yeah. Let's okay, I'm gonna stop sharing and do it again. That's maybe easier. Right, let's another strange share. Ah, good. Right. Now, reading 3. Can we all see this?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
It's here.
Great.
Mhm.
Yep. Now we've got new roles. Michael, would you kindly assign them?
Indeed. This is in As You Like It in the Forest of Arden. Love scenes do tend to take place in a partly unreal world. I mean, many people pointed out that Illyrium, there's a wordplay with Illyria in Twelfth Night. The Forest of Arden is, even in Shakespeare's time, there wasn't much of a Forest of Arden left.
Oh,
And
really? Yeah.
no, I mean, it was all they already sort of hacked it down to make a lot of ships. But it's a sort of place of an illusion, and at the same time, it's an isolated place, and it's a place where love thrives. And this is making fun or looking in a humorous way at unrequited love. Shakespeare, in my opinion, when he produces characters who are not from the upper class, tends to fall back into caricature, which is one of the strong arguments, again, just in my opinion, that this was an aristocrat writing. He seems to be absolutely at home when he's writing in the court, among dukes and so on. When he's about country people, there's a sort of feeling a little bit to me, I think there's a kind of caricature, but be that as it may, this is Silvius, the shepherd, falling in love with Phoebe, who I think is the shepherdess. And is then interrupted by Rosalind, and Rosalind is disguised as Ganymede in exactly the same way as Viola is disguised as Cesario. Very, very similar. Rosalind and Viola, I think, are very similar characters. Celia is not such a strong character. That's a close friend or half sister. I can't quite remember. Close friend, I think. They are distant relations. I can't exactly remember. Corin is a shepherd who plays a sort of slightly clownish philosophical role. I don't know if they all speak in this extract that I had. Probably they did. So, Jenny, would you like to be then Rosalind? And maybe Father Frank, would you like to be Silvius? And I don't know, Paul, can you speak or you're just looking in there with your phone? No, so maybe he's just looking in. Yeah,
He
Jose,
sent a
would you like to
message
be
about he
Corin?
not wanting to wake his wife. So I don't think.
Oh, that's a very good idea. I hadn't even thought of that. Yes, yes, you could
I
be
don't.
right. He might be in bed and next. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Corin, I don't think
Speak.
has any speaking
Doesn't
role.
speak in. Okay,
so
fine.
I would be happy to do Corin. That would be quite easy for me.
Well, if he doesn't speak, that's very easy.
Yeah.
Okay, just looking in.
Who is Phoebe?
Phoebe, I suggest. I think. Did I suggest someone? Jose.
Okay.
Did I? Or yeah.
Or was it Janine?
Or did I say Janine? Well, Janine as a woman, perhaps that
Yeah,
makes more
exactly.
sense.
Phoebe and Rosalind.
Yeah.
Or
I'm afraid you're gonna get the lion's share of the job.
Yeah, I'm
Julie,
getting confused. No, so Janine, you could be Rosalind and Jose Phoebe. Yeah.
Okay, right. Let's go. Right, Father Frank, would you launch us?
Yeah. Sweet Phoebe, do not scorn me. Do not, Phoebe, say that you love me not, but say not so in bitterness. The common executioner, with heart the accustomed sight of death makes hard, falls not the axe upon the humbled neck, but first begs pardon. Will you sterner be than he that dies and leaves by bloody drops?
Janine?
Oh, I'm Phoebe. Okay.
Oh, hang on. Yeah, that's correct, isn't it? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would not be thy executioner. I fly thee, for I would not injure thee. Thou tellest me there is murder in mine eye. 'Tis pretty, sure, and very probable, that eyes that are the frailest and softest things, who shut their coward gates on atomies, should be called tyrants, butchers, murderers. Now I do frown on thee with all my heart, and if mine eyes can wound, now let them kill thee. Now counterfeit to swoon. Why now fall down? Or if thou canst not, oh, for shame, lie not, to say mine eyes are murderers. Now show the wound mine eye hath made in thee. Scratch thee but with a pin, and there remains some scar of it. Lean upon a rush, the cicatrice and capable impressor, thy palm some moments keep. But now mine eyes, which I have darted at thee, hurt thee not, nor am I sure there is no force in eyes that can do hurt.
Oh, dear Phoebe, if ever, as that ever may be near, you meet me in some fresh cheek the power of fancy, then shall you know the wounds invisible that love's keen arrows make.
But till that time come, not thou near me, and when that time comes, afflict me with thy mocks, pity me not. As 'tis that time, I shall not pity thee.
Janine, I think it's the
Okay.
you have to do another voice. Do another voice.
Okay. And why, I pray you?
Oh well, I think perhaps somebody should be different from Rosalind actually, because Rosalind and
okay.
Phoebe very contrast. I maybe Jose, Rosalind then.
Is he there?
Oh, he's not there. Oh, okay. Oh, Michael then.
Okay, and why, I pray you, what might be your mother that you exalt, and all at once over the wretched? What though you have no beauty, as, by my faith, I see no more in you than without candle may go dark to bed? Must you be therefore proud and pitiless? Why, what means this? Why do you look on me? I see no more in you than in the ordinary of nature's sail work. Odds my little life, I think she means to tangle my eyes too. No, faith, proud mistress, hope not after it. 'Tis not your inky brows, your black silk hair, your bugle eyeballs, nor your cheek of cream that can entame my spirits to your worship. You foolish shepherd, wherefore do you follow her, like foggy south puffing with wind and rain? You are 1,000 times a properer man than she, a woman. 'Tis such fools as you that makes the world full of ill-favored children. 'Tis not her glass, but you that flatters her, and out of you she sees herself more proper than any of her lineaments can show her. But, mistress, know yourself, down on your knees, and thank heaven, fasting for a good man's love. For I must tell you friendly in your ear, sell when you can. You are not for all markets. Cry the man mercy. Love him, take his offer. Foul is most foul, being foul to be a scoffer. So take her to thee, shepherd. Fare you well.
Sweet youth, I pray you, chide a year together. I had rather hear you chide than this man woo.
He's fallen in love with your foulness, and she'll fall in love with my anger. If it be so, as fast as she answers thee with frowning looks, I'll sauce her with bitter words. Why look you so upon me?
For no ill will I bear you.
I pray you, do not fall in love with me, for I am falser than vows made in wine. Besides, I like you not. If you will know my house, 'tis as the tuft of olives here hard by. Will you go, sister? Shepherd, ply her hard. Come, sister, shepherdess, look on him better, and be not proud. Though all the world could see, none could be so abused in sight as he. Come to our flock.
Dead shepherd, now I find thy saw of might. Whoever loved that loved not at first sight.
Wait, Phoebe,
Ha! What sayest thou, Silvius?
sweet Phoebe, pity me.
Why, I am sorry for thee, gentle Silvius.
Wherever sorrow is, relief would. If you do sorrows my griefs in love, giving love your sorrow and my grief, were both extermined.
Thou hast my love. Is not that neighborly?
I would have you.
Why, that were covetousness. Silvius, the time was that I hated thee, and yet it is not that I bear thee love. But since thou canst talk of love so well, I will endure, and I'll employ thee too. But do not look for further recompense than thine own gladness that thou art employed.
So holy and so perfect is my love, and I in such a poverty of grace, that I shall think plenteous crop to glean the broken years after the man that the main harvest reaps. Lose now and then a scatter's mile, and that I live upon.
Okay, yeah. So talk about unrequited love there. You have a good a good example, and I think how true that if you're actually scornful towards someone, that can increase love more than anything else. Yeah.
I think it's interesting that the other woman tells her, sell when you can. It's almost as if she's saying, take up this offer because you may not get another.
Oh, absolutely. I know there is, of course,
Yeah,
this
yeah, I
mercantile
really enjoyed
element.
that
There's,
part.
yeah, yeah.
I love
Which
the
it-
analogies extrapolated from the culture of the time. For example, the executioner, you know, and the block, and giving some kind of forgiveness, to ask you forgiveness of a person who's being executed. And also a reference to a candle in the night. I mean, you know, when people did not have sorry, this is not really relevant. Did not have electricity, but
Oh,
had
yeah.
candles.
Yes, 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 absolutely.
Yeah.
And people were familiar with scenes of execution, and
Quite.
well, enough of that.
But of course, Rosalind is brutal, and perhaps she's more brutal than Viola. Perhaps that is a character difference. But she's cruel to be kind. Perhaps it depends how one wishes to interpret that. But I think it's a very good presentation of then this the unrequited love, and then I will have pity on you if I ever suffer it, but I never will. And in that moment, Rosalind appears, and then, which quite often in Shakespeare, there really is love at first sight. And that
Yeah.
famous quotation, in case anybody didn't know where it came from, there it is. Who never loved at first sight, is from that scene. And then her slight sense of pity, I mean, it's self-interested, but at least her realization of what it is to suffer unrequited love that she almost immediately senses.
But I'm wondering if her unrequitedness isn't the fact that she's more down to earth, that she's not really attracted to him, but kind of evaluate him. I love the line where she said that you're employed, and you can take that to mean he's busy or that he actually has a job, and therefore he can support a wife. And it's almost like, it seems to me like she's calculating, maybe mom was right. Maybe I need to look at this guy in a different way than I did before. It's women are told it's always better if the man loves you more than you love him, because in the long run, he's more apt to stay with you. So it just seemed like a really good exchange between the two alleged women. I can't remember if it's the guy who's the girl, but anyway.
Michael, do you know much about the practice of contracting marriages in that time? What was the custom? Was it done very much by elders of of the family, or were the parties themselves the main agents of it?
Are you asking me? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I would
well,
say
anyone
very
can,
much that the parents would decide. I mean, you see that very much in Romeo and Juliet, and
yeah, that's what I would have thought. Yeah.
I can't see any example, I can't spontaneously think, where couples decide for themselves. That may be the case, but I can't think of it. It's very much the need for the father's blessing and so on. Yeah.
But yeah, the others, it's that is
Brabantio
something
has to
quite
give
different.
Desdemona away to Othello, I think, for example. Yeah, as far as I
Well,
can
in
remember.
most societies, all marriages have been
Marriages,
arranged by the family.
Sorry, Professor, go on.
What did you say? Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Professor, you want to speak first? It's fine.
All right. I have to leave in a couple of minutes, so let me just spit this out.
Sure.
To leave at 11 o'clock my time. In most human societies, for as far as we can see backwards, marriages have been arranged by the families. However, some of the stories in Shakespeare and elsewhere exaggerated that, because they knew that the marriages would not really work very well if the people were not compatible. So that the offspring whose fate was being decided were very often consulted in these arranged marriages. However, the marriages were arranged by the family, but usually not against the will of the offspring, except in the case of royal marriages.
Right.
Were made for political alliances, and they had never even met each other. But within a village or a city or something where people knew each other, people knew who they were being betrothed to and had something to say about it. And usually, unless there's a political alliance in play, people would not marry people who didn't, force people to marry who didn't want to. Because
So
it was
it's kind of like a class thing, AJ? Was that
well,
the
it
higher
depends.
your class, the more apt you were to be married to somebody that for political reasons and stuff like that? It would seem to me that that would be the case.
Well, most marriages then and now are within the same social class. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't enforce it, but that's what happens.
Yeah.
In India, where the marriage is usually always arranged by the family, the groom always objects. That's expected. And and actually at the wedding ceremony, the bride, I mean, I've seen this several times. The bride will beg her father, "Don't make me go, don't make me go." And then the whole family turns their back on her, to usher her out to the street, turn their back, and they all go in and collapse emotionally. And then you see pictures of her. I mean, she goes into with her husband now, and they sit down with his family. They play cards. She goes to the Sitala temple the next day, and she's all smiles. So it's something that's expected. The youth doesn't want to get married because they've had such freedom, but the bride is expected to always object to it right up to the very last minute. It's just how it's played out.
And is she objecting to leaving her family? Is that the reason her
Yeah.
family has to turn their back on her to
Yes.
give
Yes.
her
Exactly.
into the other family?
Doesn't belong to them any longer. So
Right. Okay. That
In
makes sense.
in the marriage service of the Church of England, from the Anglican prayer book, which I have a copy here, which of course Shakespeare would have been quite familiar with, it says in the order for the solemnization of matrimony, he sets down 3 grounds for marriage. The second one says marriage was ordained for a remedy against sin and to avoid fornication. As such persons who do not have the gift of continence might marry and keep themselves undefiled members of Christ's body. So, that is a Pauline view, actually, comes from St. Paul.
Yeah.
But it's marriage is second best. But so, I mean, marriage, yes, sanctified by and of course, Shakespeare had to be an Anglican because it was required by law at the time. And in a way, it formalized the fact that marriage was central to a particular view of life, and that was that.
That's interesting. You said that was one of. Did you say one of 3 reasons? No.
Yes, the first one, the marriage is ordained for a procreation of children.
Right. Yeah.
And the third one, which is actually more congenial to many people, it was ordained for the mutual society, help and comfort that the one might have of the other, both in prosperity and adversity. So marriage is kind of friendship between man and wife.
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, so that is still in the current version of the prayer book, is it? Or
service from the prayer book, which I used when I was in parish ministry, is now being superseded.
What a surprise! What a surprise!
Well,
Would never have thought that. Yeah.
Just that, but actually, I haven't got the really more. But they made sure that it was sufficiently woke to be acceptable. But it's interesting that also in the prayer book, the wife has to swear obedience to the husband.
Yeah.
But then in a latter form of a prayer book, that was made optional. I remember Princess Diana did not swear to obey her husband, which is just as well. But the Duchess of York, who married a notorious Andrew, now notorious Duke of York, she did swear to obey him.
Interestingly enough, when Elvis Presley got married, he did not swear to obey, but Priscilla did.
They don't use it anymore in the service.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he wouldn't have obeyed her, would he? As he was the man, he wouldn't have said. It's for the wife to promise to obey the husband, I think, which relates to Paul, doesn't it? He says that, and I think that the husband is supposed to be obedient to Christ, and the woman, which got some sort of logic to it.
Yeah, that was taken for granted. I mean,
Yeah, which is, Oh, right. We seem to have gone on a detour, which I initiated, so I'll take blame or thanks for that. Right. Let's go on to the next one. No, we'll love is strange. Let's go. Reading 4. So from Hamlet.
This is from Hamlet, and this is altogether less harmonious than what we have read so far, or let's say less jovial, less friendly. This is somewhat darker, and this is Hamlet's rejection of Ophelia. Always not clear exactly what the relationship was. There's a suspicion, certainly one that I share, that probably Ophelia is pregnant. There's nothing obviously in the text to show that, but for whatever reason, Hamlet, he's being watched. The Elsinore, the castle, is a nest of spies. Essentially, he's being watched by the father, watched by the king, watched by the queen. And in this scene, yes, he confronts Ophelia because Polonius, Ophelia's father, has intimated that Hamlet's madness, or what they consider to be madness, has been caused by unrequited love.
Ophelia's pregnant by whom?
Well, no. This is just a possibility, a suspicion that she might be pregnant by Hamlet. There's nothing in the text to state that. It is simply the behavior and the fact, of course, that she kills herself after the rejection of love. All that might suggest it, and the warnings she's had from her father and so on about not trusting men who make a lot of vows, but if they are from another social class, they're just traps, the way you trap a bird. Another terrible pun from Shakespeare, a woodcock. You shouldn't trust such men, and that's the warning that the father gives to Ophelia.
Michael, who is?
Oh yeah, well, we've got well, Father Frank. Perhaps you'd like to be Hamlet, and Janine as
Too much honor.
lady. Would you be Ophelia? I think it's just the two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good my lord, how does your honor for this many a day? How does your honor for this morning?
I humbly thank you. Well.
My lord, I have remembrance of yours that I have longed to redeliver. I pray you now receive them.
No, not I. I never gave you aught.
My honored lord, you know right well you did, and with them words so sweet breath composed as made things more rich, their perfume lost. Take these again, for to the noble mind rich gifts wax poor when givers prove unkind. There, my lord.
Ha! Are you honest?
My lord?
Are you fair?
What means your lordship?
That if you be honest and fair, your honesty should admit no discourse to your beauty.
Could beauty, my lord, have better commerce than with honesty?
Aye, truly, for the power of beauty will sooner transform honesty from what it is to a bawd than the force of honesty can translate beauty into this likeness. This was sometime a paradox, but now the time gives it proof. I did love you once.
Indeed, my lord, you made me believe so.
You should not have believed me, for virtue cannot so inoculate our old stock that we shall relish of it. I loved you not.
I was the more deceived.
Get thee to a nunnery. Why wouldst thou be a breeder of sinners? I'm myself indifferent, honest, but yet that could accuse me of such things that it were better my mother had not borne me. I'm very proud, revengeful, ambitious, with more offences in my beck than I have thoughts to put them in, imagination to give them a shape, or time to act them in. What should such fellows as I do crawling between earth and heaven? We are arrant knaves, all. Believe none of us. Go thy way to a nunnery. Where is your father?
At home, my lord.
Let the doors be shut upon him, that he may play the fool nowhere but in his own house. Farewell.
Oh, help him, your sweet heavens.
If thou dost marry, I'll give thee this plague for thy dowry. Be thou as chaste as I, as pure as snow, thou shalt not escape calumny. Get thee to a nunnery, go, farewell. If thou wilt need marry, marry a fool. For wise men know well enough what monsters you make of them. To a nunnery go, and quickly too, farewell.
O heavenly powers, restore him.
I've heard of your paintings too well enough. God has given you one face, and you make yourselves another. You jig, you amble, and you lisp, and nickname God's creatures, and make your wantonness your ignorance. Go to, I'll no more on it. It has made me mad, I say. We will have no more marriages. Those that are married already, all but one shall live. The rest shall keep as they are. To a nunnery, go.
Yeah.
Should we go on to this one, or do you? I think we should pause. Is this related? I mean, it's the same.
It's sort of related. One could almost read it as one reading, and then perhaps we can make a pause because
Yeah.
this is Ophelia still, yeah, being warned by her brother Laertes and by her father. So I think we got Laertes, Ophelia, and Polonius. So perhaps, yeah. Don't think, not sure if Hamlet's here. I can't remember how much of the reading I know.
Let's have a look.
Yeah.
We've got Ophelia, Laertes.
Pol-
That I think that's it.
That's
Actually,
just it.
it's
Is it? Oh,
actually
so
it's
quite
actually
brief
quite a
then.
short one.
Yeah, yeah, it's quite brief. So if you'd like to perhaps instead read Laertes then. Yeah.
My necessaries are embarked. Farewell. And sister, as the winds give benefit and convey his assistant, do not sleep, and let me hear from you.
Do you doubt that?
For Hamlet and the trifling of his favour, hold it a fashion and a toy in blood, a violet in the youth of primy nature, forward, not permanent, sweet, not lasting, the perfume and suppliance of a minute, no more.
No more but so?
Think it no more, for nature, crescent, does not grow alone in hues and bulk, but as this temple waxes, the inward service of the mind and soul grows wide withal. Perhaps he loves you now, and now no soil nor cautel doth besmirch the virtue of his will. But you must fear his greatness weighed, his will is not his own, for he himself is subject to his birth. He may not, as unvalued persons do, carve for himself, for on his choice depends the safety and health of this whole state. And therefore must his choice be circumscribed unto the voice and yielding of that body whereof he is the head. Then, if he says he loves you, it fits your wisdom so far to believe it, as he in his particular act and place may give his saying deed, which is no further than the main voice of Denmark, goes withal. Then weigh what loss your honour may sustain if, with too credent ear you list his songs, or lose your heart, or your chaste treasure open to his unmastered opportunity. Fear it, Ophelia, fear it, my dear sister, and keep you in the rear of your affection, out of the shot and danger of desire. The chariest maid is prodigal enough, if she unmask her beauty to the moon. Virtue itself escapes not calumnious strokes. The canker galls the infants of the spring too oft before their buttons be disclosed, and in the morn and liquid dew of youth, contagious blasphements are most imminent. Be wary then, best safety lies in fear. Youth to itself rebels, though none else near.
I shall the effect of this good lesson keep as watchman to my heart. But, good my brother, do not as some ungracious pastors do, show me the steep and thorny way to heaven, whiles like a puffed and reckless libertine, himself the primrose path of dalliance treads, and recks not his own reed.
Oh, fear me not.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know, that sort of fits in there again is a little bit what Janine was talking about as well. And I mean this thing of the woman must be virgin.
Great phrases,
They
the
are.
worn and liquid ways of youth.
Yes.
That rather conveys or something about youth, doesn't it? Worn and liquid way.
Yeah.
I think wasn't there a book called The Primrose Path of Dalliance or something? But a lot of that is
I'm
quoted
sure there
in it.
must
Yeah,
be.
I think
Yeah.
there is. Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
It is. Now we have so much. It might be an idea. I'll just throw up the idea to have this in 2 parts.
Oh, the idea of not doing so is to me inconceivable. We can't. I mean, there's so much here. It's very, you know.
Well, I think, what did I send? 12, and we got through about 6, so that, or 5.
Yeah, I mean the PDF is 45 pages long. I know that they're quite, you know, sparsely.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I constantly underestimate the length of whatever I do. It's true when I write things as well.
I'm surprised that we are not doing any of the sonnets, because
they come at the end, Father Frank. This is it. I mean, I've got so much. Yes, I have got 2 sonnets.
Praise be to God.
Yeah. I mean, I suspect we may well get 3 meetings out of this. I don't know. We will see. But I think it's, you know, it has its own pace, and that will determine. Yeah.
Fine.
I'm going to have to go to.
Oh, okay, Michael. Are you, when are you next in London?
October, November. I'm not really.
Oh, okay. That's good. Well, we must meet up then.
Yes,
okay. I think I sent a postcard to your London address. It would probably have disintegrated by then, you know.
It just got picked up today then, and I'll probably get it.
Oh, great. Oh, wonderful. Okay, that's good. Okay, thanks so much for coming.
Thanks for today.
Yes,
thanks
bye-bye.
for coming. Thanks for coming.
Bye-bye.
Yes.
Bye-bye. Yeah, it's I think the language in Hamlet is some of my favorite of his. It's really precise. It's on the it's on target with what it says, and it has a minimum of coloration, and it's it is very, very, very beautiful. I mean,
in some respects, I think Hamlet is the richest of the plays in terms of the interpretations that are possible to make, in terms of the language, in terms of the wordplay, and constantly one could return to Hamlet. But Hamlet of the folio, probably not Hamlet of the quarto, because there are quite substantial differences. But the folio was considerably lengthened. It has been suggested, which made me sort of start up, that some of the language of but this is going into a completely other topic in a way, of the Hamlet in the folio might have been by the editor, who might have been an Italian called John Florio. But that's another debate, of course. The whole thing of authorship, and not only was it the man from Stratford or the Duke of Oxford or Earl of Oxford, or were other people involved as well? I mean, as I sort of mentioned in my newsletter, I recently read Winter's Tale, and I was actually shocked by, in my opinion, how very bad it was. And really then, just how do we know not only who was the author, but was he any of those authors? Because all relies on, in the case of The Winter's Tale, that it appeared in the first folio and it had the name William Shakespeare next to it. But so did a lot of plays that are not regarded by Shakespeare now, like John Oldcastle, and a number of other plays appeared as by William Shakespeare. Now nobody considers that by William Shakespeare. But that's a completely separate subject, of course.
So, Michael, you do not subscribe to the view that Shakespeare did not write Shakespeare, namely it was somebody else.
I subscribe to the view that Shakespeare was the Earl of Oxford 100%, yes.
Oh, my God. I mean, Michael, it's a heresy.
That sounds very dangerous.
The Earl of Oxford was no Shakespeare. The Earl of Oxford.
Well, Michael, do you notice a difference in the different plays? In other words, everybody's got a style when they write.
Yes.
And do you notice a distinct difference in style in the different plays on which you base your theory that it wasn't Sure,
Oh,
maybe
oh,
it
no,
was
no, no.
somebody
That's a
else,
separate issue.
Dave,
No,
or-
no. But there there are two subjects. One is the authorship question, but the other is how many people maybe have involved in some plays. I mean, I think just about everybody, really everybody, nearly everybody who studies Shakespeare says that Pericles is not entirely written by whoever Shakespeare was. I a lot of people consider Hubble, Bubble, Toil and Trouble, Cauldron, Burn, and Something Bubble is by Thomas Middleton. I've been quite low because that was very much in his style. I mean, there was collaborative work for sure.
But is that
Uh,
not true for any theatrical or movie production? That you
Right.
have a script, you have a working script, and then you have a shooting script. So
mm,
could it be
mm.
that we have really two versions of the same play? And do we have both versions available to us as a public?
Well, we
But
have a lot of
I love
versions
the
of some
fact
of the
that you
plays. Yeah.
explain some of the stuff in terms of the context of what we're reading. I really appreciate that. You know, Laertes is her brother. I didn't know that, but I'm just wondering if it is not possible that that could be, some of it could have been lost in translation.
Oh, completely. I mean, it's not possible. It's certain. I mean, we only have to look at Hamlet to see the difference between the quartos and the folios. And there are some plays that have got 4, 5, 6 quartos. They're different. And some have this version or this word, and some versions have that version. So that's for certain. There is no text in existence in the original handwriting of the person who was Shakespeare. So they're all.
You personally, have you noticed differences that you personally can point to and say, this is what I read, and it's so significantly different. A is not B written in the same way.
Yes, personally, I would I'll be careful here because I'm certainly not a Shakespeare expert, but I do rather wonder at Winter's Tale and The Merry Wives of Windsor. And The Merry Wives of Windsor seems to me in many ways very different from the rest of Shakespeare. There has been a sort of one of these computer tests with vocabulary, and I think The Merry Wives of Windsor, the winner there was somebody called Thomas Hayward, but the name attached to it is Shakespeare. But yeah, I'll put it the other way around. I think a lot of the style is the same. You can identify it as the same writer. From the sonnets to Love's Labour's Lost, from Hamlet to Macbeth, I would say very much most of the time it looks like the same, sounds like the same writer. There are certain styles, there's certain ways of rhythm of syntax that strike me very much as one writer. And if you compare that to, say, somebody whose very distinctive way of writing is John Webster, who came in the Jacobean period as a very clearly, easily identifiable way of writing that you immediately see is not Shakespeare, and Shakespeare is not John Webster.
That wasn't the right of a man from Stratford upon Avon, whom we know a good deal about, and all the early commentators, people like what's the name, Fletcher. The first folio of Shakespeare was composed, put together by two fellow actors, Fletcher and somebody else. There is a statue.
Condell, yeah.
Yeah, there is a statue to Shakespeare. We're showing the first folio by the you know, where the I'm going bomb, you know, but I mean, you know, the idea, it's a later idea. I think the first person who came up with this idea that the man from Stratford upon Avon, who was not the writer of the Shakespeare plays, was a crazy American woman. She's the one who came up with this.
It wasn't
And then
me.
it was taken up. Sorry, Janine, I don't mean to have a go at women, but she was a woman. I mean, you know.
Yeah, Delia
Most
Bacon
women
was
are
her
not.
name.
Yeah, but I
I
mean,
agree, but-
it's just eccentricity. I mean, it's not, but I agree that it may well be that some of the plays, I think if I remember correctly, the one about Henry VIII later on is that
It's
trivia
also considered to be, yes.
author somebody else.
Yes.
But and I don't know. I mean, I was talking to some American tourists the other day, and they'd just been to see Titus Andronicus.
Mhm.
And of course, Titus Andronicus is, it's part of a gory plays. But I mean, at that stage, probably Shakespeare was influenced by Seneca, the
Yes,
Seneca,
yeah.
which was very gory. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't Shakespeare. But I mean, even the John Aubrey's short, brief sketch Life of Shakespeare, which is quite close to Shakespeare's days, assumed that Shakespeare was the author. So, I mean, are you really serious? You don't believe
No,
that
I'm
the
entirely
Yellow
serious.
Oxford?
I mean, one of the few things I'm fairly convinced is that it couldn't
Are you
possibly.
saying so that it was not the man from Stratford-upon-Avon? But it was-
Definitely not. No, no. I'm certainly no.
I'm
There's a monumental fraud.
trying to recover on this shock. I'm about a kilo over.
Why?
The Father Frank is Shakespeare mentioned in Brief Lives? It's such a long time ago since
Yes,
I
indeed. Yes,
I didn't
He
really.
is mentioned. It's not a very long
Okay.
chapter, but sure.
But yeah, they're all brief
It does
lives, aren't
mention
they?
quite
Yeah.
a few detail of it. I mean, it also says that his plays will be performed until the English language exists. And
Okay. Yeah.
I obviously I've been to Stratford-upon-Avon. I've guided tourist Stratford-upon-Avon, and I've seen his house, which obviously highly reconstructed, and his tomb, of
Reconstructed
course,
and yes.
incredible place. His grave in his tomb in Stratford Parish Church. So, but I mean, it seems to me that all this early testimony about Shakespeare makes it almost impossible. And also there is, in fact, if I remember correctly, in John Aubrey, A Life of the Earl of Oxford. And was he not the guy who at some stage disgraced himself by parting in the presence of Queen Elizabeth I?
Oh, dear.
That might be an anecdote from
Well, apparently he was so ashamed of himself, he went into exile, and when he came back and was introduced to the Queen again, she apparently said, "My lord, I've forgotten the fart."
this sounds like the kind of anecdote that John Aubrey would
I
have
mean,
got
I've
into,
got the
which it
reply
sounds
somewhere
that
here.
shouldn't take
I'm
John
trying to
Aubrey
see where it
terribly
is.
seriously.
Well, Michael, I have another question in terms of
It is
writing.
brief lives. I've got it here.
Well,
I'm
it's
a maniac. I've got this
written
book.
down.
I'm trying to find out. It's all in alphabetical order. So
Mm.
I've got the life of Shakespeare. I got Shakespeare somewhere. It's here it is, William Shakespeare. Yeah, it's only a page and a half.
But that, yeah. Oh, okay.
It's great stuff. I'm not going to read it out now. But
No,
I mean,
well, yeah,
it's,
amusing, entertaining, fictional anecdotes. Yeah, not more than that, I think.
But I have another question in terms of how long he lived and how many things were written. Could it be possible that age alone would change his outlook, his style, his, the maturity? When you write something at 20, you're not going to write the same thing.
Yeah,
at
of course. Yeah.
70. Do you see that? Because obviously you've read his plays extremely extensively and much more than I will ever do in my lifetime. Do you see that? Do you see that development over time? And can you point to times when you can say, oh, this was like because of the blue period, or Shakespeare's red period, or you know what I mean? In other words, the segments of his writing.
Well, yes, it's interesting that you say that because I think you can see that in the sonnets, and this goes back to the authorship question because it seems to me that the sonnets were written by someone of some age, and there are frequent references to the state of aging, which makes not so much sense if the sonnets were written by the man born in Stratford. It makes more sense from the Earl of Oxford. This is somebody who's old for sure, and that comes over in the sonnets. I'm not sure if in the plays I can personally say that I see that so much that you can say, oh, this is by an older man, this is by a younger man, but perhaps in the style, but that's not a question of that's a question of the writing. But in the younger man perhaps tends to use the rhyming couplets more. So you think of Love's Labour's Lost and Richard II, where there's a lot of these rhyming couplets. which are less used in King Lear and Macbeth. But in terms of, this is an old man, I don't personally see that very strongly in the plays, but that's just me. But I do see that certainly in the sonnets, actually. It seems to me to be an older man.
Now, earlier you said that the audiences might have had, and I'm paraphrasing you, might have had trouble understanding some of the plays that he wrote
I think Father Frank said that,
in
yeah.
terms of the language.
Yeah.
Was it the next shiny object? In other words, when these plays were produced, were people going, "Oh my goodness, this is new"? In other words, did they have the same astonishment that people who read Shakespeare for the first time now have?
Yeah, that's an interesting and difficult question. The style of the plays in themselves and the language used, I think, were definitely new and novel. Shakespeare wasn't the first. The plays of Christopher Marlowe, probably most of them were earlier than most of Shakespeare's plays. But this idea of blank verse, oh, that awful monument. Yes, I know. Do you
And
know
this
earlier
is
that
a
that
postcard
monument, they had a
showing
sack
the
of grain and
dreadful
they,
statue effigies
yeah,
of Shakespeare's
the
grave
man looks like a
in church.
complete idiot in
And
that
also, I
monument.
found a page in John Aubrey about the Edward Vere, Earl of Oxford. He does mention the anecdote of a fart. Doesn't say anything about that he's written Shakespeare.
Well, I don't think John Aubrey is a very good authority, but anyway.
I love John Aubrey.
I'm not saying he isn't
It is
entertaining.
out of his world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, to go back to Ginny, what you were saying, previously, I think that theatre, such as it had been, was traditionally reproducing mystery plays and very strongly sort of religious Christian message. And this introduction of this definitely was a new theatre that came with Christopher Marlowe, Thomas Kidd, and William Shakespeare. Probably would have astonished people, I imagine. And the language was an indulgence in very much English language, which hadn't. It wasn't this attachment to the Latinate language that had existed before. There was a lot of discussion about that at the time, so I would imagine, yes, people were very enthralled. I don't know to what extent they found the language difficult is an open question. I think it's very hard for us today to say. I would just mention that other playwrights also had difficult language, so I don't think that that was unique to Shakespeare. And the poets were extremely difficult.
Well, just one last question, and that is the plays that deal with other cultures. Okay, like Othello is in Spain, right?
We're in Cyprus. In Cyprus, yeah.
Oh, okay. And Romeo and Juliet is in Italy. So, did Shakespeare travel that widely that he would have picked up on the cultural nuances in the stuff like marriage, like what Father Frank was talking about, and AJ was talking about marriages in general, the biblical aspects, the difference between an Anglican view of it as opposed to a Catholic view of it in Italy. So how does that match up in terms of Shakespeare's understanding of other cultures?
Well, this is one of the questions that everybody who believes that Shakespeare is not born in Stratford-upon-Avon would immediately raise, because the Shakespeare born in Stratford-upon-Avon, so far as any records show, never travelled out of England at all.
Okay.
In fact, never travelled out between Stratford and London, as a matter of fact. He didn't even go to anywhere. And Edward de Vere travelled very widely and certainly visited Italy and France.
There's no
and would have
evidence.
that knowledge.
I mean, I met some Sicilians who believed that Shakespeare had been to Sicily because in one of his plays, I'm trying to remember which one, is in As You Like It or Much Ado About Nothing?
No, it's I think it's
It's set in Messina, isn't it?
Comedy of Errors, I think, and
Comedy
also
of Errors?
Pericles
Okay.
is partly in Sicily. Yeah,
But I mean, yes, he was widely traveled, obviously, but I mean, for example, I recall that there is no evidence his name is not entered amongst the various alumni or students of his local school in Stratford. And of course, there is no evidence he ever went to Oxford or
Right.
Cambridge.
Or indeed that he went to Stratford
Yeah.
Grammar School.
But
For that matter.
I
It's
used
all
to have
speculation.
a friend who was a very learned lady, and I remember putting this. We often had interesting discussions, and I said, you know, how is it possible that a man who wrote such a wonderful works and with lots of great references could not, you know, had not studied at university? And she replied, said, "But Frank, Shakespeare was a genius. So he transcended the limits of ordinary mortals. Geniuses are not ordinary. So he could do what ordinary people cannot do."
But I think to be a writer who has got the ability to quote a variety of authors and is familiar with the canon of European
Yes, but
literature
how
as it
would you have
was,
known? How would you have known?
you have to actually have had the opportunity to read them. One can be a mathematical genius or musical genius,
True.
you know, using a few basics, or one can be a genius at football or something. But you know, you can't be a
agree.
literary genius without some
But
sort
you
of
can't,
access.
you know, you're quoting Latin authors.
Yeah, exactly.
You must
You
have
need a
known,
knowledge of Latin. You don't
or
know
even
Latin just
mythology,
by,
even
you know.
mythologies.
Yeah,
That's right.
It's
Anyway,
different,
enough.
isn't it? I think I mean it's a fascinating subject. Of course, we shouldn't
is,
apologize for touching on it. But given people have left, I think maybe we should keep the goodies for next time.
Fine,
And
absolutely. Yes.
I think this is all good material, and the idea of going, you know, anyone who maybe send a message saying anyone who wants the PDF to look at things in advance of what we've been reading, I can send it to them.
Yeah, I think there's no spoiler on that. If they
Yeah, of
would
course
like
not.
to look at it in advance, there are spoilers on other things, but not on that. I think.
No,
Yeah.
I mean it can be read many times.
Yeah.
So I think unless you've got any reasons not to, we could have this for the next meeting and
Indeed,
next maybe
possibly.
two meetings.
If you've got a set instead, we could fix the date for the second meeting, because I'm away for 2 weeks. I'm in London for 2 weeks in England.
Yeah,
in June.
when are you coming? Are you, because you did mention meeting on the 11th or 12th.
Yes,
I did get back. You got my message back.
Oh, I didn't. I obviously missed it again. Yeah. And
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thursday the 12th, if that's a good day for you, that might fit.
Yeah.
That's excellent, because Tristan will be over very shortly as well. We're actually meeting him, so if we can work something out on the 12th, that's great. But as far as Soteria is concerned, it would have to be one of the last 2 weeks of June for me.
Fine, it should be okay. About 5:30 should be okay. As today.
For example, June the 29th.
Yeah, it should be okay.
I'm not free on the 29th.
Oh, that's a pity.
Well,
I can't do the earlier.
I'm not indispensable.
I'm having
but you're a very important part of the group, Father Frank.
We could try a Saturday just for a change, or no, it's not very good for you, is it, Steve?
I'm free on the previous Sunday, 22nd, but not on
I'm not here then. Yeah,
guiding.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm on the. I suppose I could do the 22nd. Yeah.
22nd.
22nd, okay. I'm free.
Okay, let's go for that then. Yeah.
I think people who are here have a certain kind of privilege in saying I'm free or not free. Yeah. Okay, you're here. Yeah. So it's 22nd. Okay.
Okay, that's the day after the.
It's not possible to make it way earlier. I see Paul is still. It must be 4 a.m. there. He's faithfully listening. Well, maybe. And
maybe
yes, a plea for him. I don't know if it's possible for people. I'm easy. I can meet much earlier, but maybe other people can't. I mean, in the day.
Potentially, I'm not sure that I can, but
of course, it's bad for Americans, isn't it, Janine? Then you're...
Yeah, it is that they're real flexible.
Can I just ask Paul if he's listening? I don't know if he is.
Hello, Paul. Yeah,
Paul. If it was say 3 hours earlier, could you come? He might have fallen asleep, of course. It's his
Yeah,
phone.
yeah, it might just be on. Okay.
I think
well,
it's 4 or 5 in the morning there. Maybe he's getting up. There's no answer. Can send a message.
Well, you're talking about the time.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
we're
I
talking
mean,
about
this
the time.
time it suits me quite well, but it's up to you.
He can't.
Michael,
yeah.
I don't think I can do
Okay, then
much
that
earlier,
kind of says
so
it. No, okay.
uh,
But we keep it there. So I just that's an
Hmm.
incentive for Paul to try and find some few more Australians, because he's got a couple more Australians than he's got.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to be in London, Michael.
I'm going to be in London. Yeah, we perhaps go back. The Thursday would be there. I'm with my family, so we're doing probably quite a lot. We're down in Deal, but we'll be in
If you got
London
your
on 2 days.
family,
I'll send you a mail, and maybe we
Yeah.
can meet up. Yeah.
all right. Yeah, I'll just reprise what I wrote just quickly, so you know, Michael. I've got a sort of commitment on Thursday in sort of Denmark Hill to until about 1:30 or 1 o'clock. I could probably get off, so I could meet you in central London, maybe at the Victory Services Club for lunch.
We'll talk about it then. We've
Yeah.
got some time, but yeah, that's good to know. So we
unless
could
you've
meet
got
up,
any
yeah.
other kind of like things you want to do.
Well, I'm with my
the
family, so I'm
family.
sure they're going to have lots of things they want to do. Yeah. It's more a
One
question of.
thing I heard a chap recommending to me the other day was a tour of the Old Bailey, which is quite. He said it. I mean, he's
The
a
Old
barrister.
Bailey.
It wasn't Adrian, by the way. And he said it was one of the most interesting experiences I've had.
Pretty
So this is a
original,
barrister. Yeah, I think it's
It's a
free. I
pub.
think.
You mean a pub opposite the Old Bailey?
yeah. No,
mean-
I think he was.
Why did you mention the Old Bailey?
That's
Yeah,
part of it.
I think it's available via Eventbrite. But anyway, I mean that might be something that was like a family type thing, which would
Thanks
be
for the
accessible.
tip.
Anyway,
That's interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, all right then. Let's yeah. I thank everyone for hanging on. Thanks,
Indeed, yeah.
Janine, Paul for
You'll be sending out notices, right, Michael?
Well,
Yeah.
of course.
About
Yeah.
the
of
meeting
course,
yeah,
time.
thanks
yes,
very much,
yes,
Father
yeah.
Frank, and I enjoy the rest of the Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening, what's
Thank
left of it.
you.
And thanks
And
so
you
much
too.
for all
Take
the
care.
work you've
Take care,
you've
bye-bye.
done, Michael. It was great. Really.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
Fascinating.
thanks so much.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, wonderful. All right,
Thank you.
bye bye,
Right.
bye bye,
Bye.
everyone.